Les Dukes aveugles. Les Dukes aveugles, French pronunciation, Les deux aveugles, The Two Blind Men or The Blind Beggars, is an 1855 one-act French bouffonerie musicale operetta by Jacques Offenbach. The libretto was written by Jules Moinaux and was a condensation of his three-act Les Musiciens ambulants. The half-hour-long piece is a comic sketch about two supposedly blind beggars, consisting of an overture and four numbers. Offenbach was bold in making light of the disabled poor, but he believed that his patrons would see the humor of the piece. Most Parisians had been pestered by beggars on Parisian street corners, and Offenbach's blind beggars were con men, rather than deserving outcasts of society. The little piece was an instant hit, praised for its catchy dance tunes, and it soon spread Offenbach's name and music around the world. Performance history. Les Dukes aveugles premiered on the opening night of the Bouff's Parisians on 5 July 1855 at the company's first theatre, the tiny Salle Lacaze on the Champs-Élysées in Paris. It was the hit of the evening and was performed at the Salle Lacaze into the fall, making stars of the comedians who appeared in it. After Offenbach's new winter theatre, the Salle Choiseul, opened in December, the show continued to be presented there. It had become so successful that Louis Napoleon invited Offenbach's company to perform it for representatives to the Congress of Paris in the Salon de Diane in the Palace of the Tuileries on 28 February 1856. A revised version was presented in Paris at a matinee gala at the Opéra Comique's second Salle Favart on 28 May 1858, with revivals on 6 November 1900, 14 December 1910, and 12 December 1934. The piece was first seen in Berlin at Kroll's on 10 March 1856 and in Vienna at the Carl Theatre on 19 April, where it played as part of a tour by the French actor Pierre Levasseur from the Théâtre du Palais Royal. The first work by Offenbach to be presented in Vienna, it strongly influenced the subsequent career of Carl Thumann. On 27 June 1856, Levasseur and his partner Jules Lefort gave the first performance in London, a concert version at the Hanover Square Rooms, and it was also part of the opening night of the Bouff's Parisians' first London season in 1857, which ran at St. James's Theatre from 20 May to 14 July. It was given in Antwerp in French on 21 November 1856. New York at the Metropolitan Music Hall on 31 August 1857, Buenos Aires on 13 October 1861, and Saigon, the first opera ever performed there, in the autumn of 1864. Les Dukes aveugles was translated into German by Carl Friedrich Wittmann as Zwei Arme Blind and was performed in Vienna at the Theatre im Franz Josephs Kai on 26 May 1863 and in Dresden on 19 No. In English it played at London's Gallery of Illustration as Beggar Thy Neighbour on 29 March 1870, at London's Large Gaiety Theatre as A Mere Blind translated by H. B. Farney and starring Fred Sullivan on 15 April 1871, and by Harry Rickard's company at the School of Arts in Sydney, Australia, as The Blind Beggars. The Opera de Monte Carlo performed it in French on 7 May 1902, and London's Ambassadors Theatre on 11 May 1914, also in French. It had clearly become one of Offenbach's most successful one-act works. Arthur Sullivan saw the piece at the Amateur Maury Minstrels Group in London and was prompted to collaborate with F.C. Burnand on the first of his many operettas, Cox and Box 1866. In its use of the voice imitating a musical instrument and the combination together of separate melodies, though done previously by Sullivan, the Offenbach points towards features of the one-act Sullivan piece with which it shared an evening. A complete performance of Les Dukes aveugles followed by Croqueffer, ou Le Dernier des Paladins, forms part of the 1996 television film Offenbach's Geheimnis, directed by Istvin Sobo. The work was presented by Palazzetto Bruzane on a double bill, with Le Compositeur talk by Herve at the Theatre Marigny, Paris, for a series of performances beginning in January 2019. Subsequent works With less dukes aveugles, Offenbach became the darling of Second Empire Paris. His later pieces would continue to mock customs of the day, without really upsetting the status quo enjoyed by the theatre-going public. Offenbach's early operettas were small-scale one-act works, since the law in France limited musical theatre works at all except the principal theatres to one-act pieces, with no more than 3 singers and perhaps some mute characters. In 1858, this law was changed, and Offenbach was able to offer full-length works beginning with Orpheus in the Underworld. Roles. Synopsis. Time, 19th century. Place, Paris. 2 blind beggars compete for the best position on a bridge, first in a musical battle, with Patichin playing on a trombone and Jurafir a mandolin, then in a game of cards, in which they cheat and betray their pretense of blindness. Business has not been brisk. When passers-by drop coins, the beggars are able to see well enough to retrieve them. To impress each other, they fabricate wild stories, accompanied by singing. The contest becomes comically grotesque. Music. The music consists of an overture and 4 short numbers, of which the bolero, a duet which begins La lune brille, Le ciel scintille, the moon beams, the sky sparkles, is probably the standout.